Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gorangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jai Mudire. Hello, Sri Radhe Govinda Bhagwan ki Jai.
जय
Hello, Srimad Bhagavatam ki
जय
Jai.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, everyone.
हरे कृष्णा
Hare
everyone.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna Ajay back from the
Hare
beach.
Krishna. Yes, sir. Back.
Nice. Hello, Prem sir. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा.
All right. शुरू करते हैं. तो जैसा कि हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं, we are reading about Prahlāda Maharaj giving transcendental उपदेश to all the students in Gurukul, yeah, of his age group, pretty much all his friends, right? And one of the question which the students asked was, how did Prahlāda Maharaj gain this transcendental knowledge, which is not even possible given as Hiranyakashipu as the king, but at the same time Prahlāda Maharaj being in the palace, how is that possible? So Prahlāda Maharaj explained that, right? How Devatas attacked when Hiranyakashipu went for tapasya, and at that point they also took Prahlāda Maharaj's mother. Indradev was taking her, and at that time Narad Muni intervened, and Dev Rishi Narad took charge of Hiranyakashipu's Prahlāda Maharaj and Prahlāda Maharaj's mother. Yeah. And then they were doing the seva of Dev Rishi Narad. Yeah. And at that point, Narad Muni gave the transcendental message. That's what Prahlāda Maharaj was hearing in the womb. Yeah, he was in the womb of Ayudha, the wife of Hiranyakashipu. And the same knowledge, Prahlāda Maharaj absorbed it very well, being the highest devotee, and he is giving it to all the students, right? And that's how we are hearing directly from Prahlāda Maharaj. We were reading the Shlok 22nd yesterday, Satwa Adhyaya, Satwa Skandika, and we read that the Lord's 8 separated material energies, Asto Prakritiya hai, the 3 modes of material nature, yeah, Traya, Evhi Tad Drugana hai, and the 16 transformations. The 16 transformations, which are the 11 senses and the 5 gross material elements like earth, water, sky, fire, right? And so earth, water, sky,
Ether.
water and ether.
Ether.
Yeah? Ether, Akash. Yeah. And within all these, the one spiritual soul exists as the observer. So we are surrounded by all these elements, but inside we have a spirit soul as the observer. Therefore, all the great acharyas have concluded that the individual soul is conditioned by these material elements. What does that mean? Because as soon as we come in touch with the materialistic elements, the soul gets conditioned, which means it forgets its relationship with the Supreme Soul, with Paramatma. And because of that, we start getting in the law of karmas and into the misery of birth, death, old age, and disease, is what is mentioned. So, Asto Prakriti hai, and then Shodasya Vikara hai, 16 transformations, right? Who has told us this? Acharyas, right? The Acharya like Kapil Muni, yeah, Dev Rishi Narad, they have told us. So, very nice purport. We'll read this. Anilji?
Yeah. As explained in the previous verse, Kshetresu Dehesu Tathatma Yogair Adhyatma Vid Brahma Gayati Gayatirm Labheta. A spiritually advanced person can understand how the spiritual particle exists within the body, and thus by cultivating spiritual knowledge, he can attain perfection in his spiritual life. The intelligent person who is expert in finding the self within the body must understand the 8 external energies which are listed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayuhu, Kham, Mano, Buddhir, Evacha, Ahankara, Ityam, Mi, Bhinna, Prakritir, Astadha. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Bhumi, earth, includes all the objects of sense perception, rupa, form, rasa, taste, gandh, smell, shabd, sound, and sparsh, touch. Within the earth are the fragrances of roses, the taste of sweet fruit, and whatever else we want. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.10.4, Sarva Kam Dugha Mahat, the earth Mahi contains all our requirements. Thus, the objects of sense perception are all present in Bhumi or the earth. The gross material elements and subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and ahankar, false ego, constitute the total material energy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah? Prem, sir?
Within the total material energy are the 3 material modes or qualities. These qualities, Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna, belong not to the soul but to the material energy. It is because of the interaction of these 3 material modes of nature that the 5 knowledge-gathering senses, the 5 working senses, and their control of the mind are manifested. Then, according to these modes, the living entity gets the opportunity to perform different types of karma with different types of knowledge, thinking, feeling, and willing. Thus, the bodily machine begins to work. This has been properly analyzed in Sankhya Yoga by great acharyas, especially by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna in his incarnation as Devhuti Putra Kapila. This is indicated here by the word acharya. We need not follow anyone who is not an authorized acharya. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One can understand the truth fully when he has taken shelter of an expert acharya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah? So, few important things mentioned here, right? And we already know about the 3 gunas, right? Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. And what is mentioned is they belong not to the soul, but to the material energy. Yeah. The soul is beyond those 3 gunas. So when somebody is situated in Satogun, and then he even gets beyond that, yeah, that's when the soul is realized. Yeah. But then it's mentioned that because of the interaction of these 3 material modes of nature, we get 5 knowledge-gathering senses. That is called 5 Gyanendriyas. Which are those 5 Gyanendriyas? Do you know? 5 Gyanendriya? Once here?
Speech, sight. Indriyas will be the eyes, nose,
Right. Yeah.
skin,
Eyes, nose,
Ear,
Touch,
ear,
smell, hearing.
Skin,
tongue, ear, yeah, and
skin,
skin for touch. Yeah. So skin for touch, nose for smelling,
smell, like nose for smell, eyes
taste,
for sight,
mouth
and
for
ears for sound,
yeah,
tongue
and
for the taste.
tongue
taste.
for the taste. Yeah. So those are the 5 Gyanendriyas. Yeah. And then we have 5 working senses. That's called Karmendriya, right? That's like hand, legs, etc. 5 working senses, and all these 5 Gyanendriya and 5 Karmendriyas are controlled by the mind. Yeah, are the 11 things which are mentioned, plus the 5 earth, water, is sky, right, and fire and
Wind.
wind. Yeah, so those are the 16 elements which were mentioned earlier, right? And then according to these modes, the living, then what happens once we are surrounded, as we know, right? So all of us, we have those 16 elements, right? And we know we are conditioned because we are in touch with the material modes of nature, right? Sometimes we are in Satogun, sometimes we are in Rajogun, sometimes we are in Tamogun, right? All those things, based on those, what happens is the living entity, right, gets the opportunity to perform different types of karma. And so this is how we get into the fruitive actions. This is how we get into the karma with different types of knowledge, thinking, feeling, and willing. And of course, the bodily machine begins to work. And then we get into this entangled into the cycle of karma, fruitive activities, based on which we get into different types of birth, death, old age, and disease, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And that is all also explained in the Sankhya Yoga. If you remember, we read about Kapil Muni's birth, and then we read Sankhya Yoga at that point in time. Yeah, also explained it. So you continue reading, Tarun.
The living entity is individual, but the body is a composition of many material elements. This is proved by the fact that as soon as the living entity quits this combination of material elements, it becomes a mere conglomeration of matter. The matter is qualitatively one, and the spiritual soul is qualitatively one with the Supreme. The Supreme is one, and the individual soul is one. But individual soul is understood to be the master of the individual combination of material energy, whereas the Supreme Lord is the controller of the total material energy. The living entity is the master of his particular body, and according to his activities, he is subjected to different types of pains and pleasures. However, although the Supreme Person, the Paramatma, is also one, he is present as an individual in all the different bodies. The material energy is in fact divided into 24 elements. The individual soul, the owner of the individual body, is the 25th subject, and above everything is Lord Vishnu as Paramatma, the Supreme Controller, who is the 26th subject. When one understands all of these 26 subjects, he becomes Adhyatma with an expert in understanding the distinction between matter and spirit. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetra Kshetrajanayor Dhyanam, understanding of the Kshetra, the constitution of the body, and of the individual soul and the super soul constitutes real jnana or knowledge. Unless one ultimately understands that the Supreme Lord is eternally related with the individual soul, one's knowledge is imperfect. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So it's nicely described here. Yeah. And the important part in Bhagavad Gita is Kshetra. Kshetra Jnana Jnanam. Like basically the Kshetra is the scope of the body, right? Scope of the individual soul. So Kshetra is the constitution of the body. Like, you know, I think most of us are in IT and we know, right, the scope of a variable. Like the program, there's a scope of the variable, right? This is a scope, right? You have the soul and then the constitution of the body. And then the karmas which are done within the scope of this body, right? And the individual soul, yeah, is what determines everything else, right? And the real knowledge, however, is that the soul and the body is different. The soul is eternal and the soul is related to the super soul. That's the real knowledge is what is mentioned. And unless one ultimately understands that the Supreme Lord is eternally related with the individual soul, one's knowledge is imperfect. Yeah, is what is mentioned. Yeah, Tinaji?
This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Bahunam Jnanam Ante Jnanvan Mama Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Sabhatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Everything material and spiritual consists of various energies of Vasudeva, to whom the individual soul, the spiritual part of the Supreme Lord, is subordinate. Upon understanding this perfect knowledge, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Sah Mahatma Sudurlabha. Hare Krishna.
Right, yeah, and we have read this shlok again and again. It's from Bhagavad Gita, yeah, which clearly mentions Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Bahunam, like many births, many births and deaths. What happens? Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate, like the one who is actually in knowledge, what do? They surrenders unto me. Me is Lord Shri Krishna who is speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, right? So they surrenders unto me, who is none other than Lord Shri Krishna. And why? That time they know that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is Sarvam Iti, and is also mentioned Se Mahatma Sudurlabha, like millions and millions, right? One person probably, or maybe is such a great soul is very rare, is what is mentioned by Lord Shri Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, but once we understand this knowledge, which we are just reading about all the 24, 25, 26 elements, the soul, the supreme soul, and then all the Gyanendriyas and Karmendriyas, right? Once we understand this knowledge and then practice the devotional service, that also we read, right? 9 types of devotional service. How do we surrender unto Lord Shri Krishna? It says here, Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate. But in Kali Yuga, the Kirtan, right? And the 9 Paddhatis are given. Shavanam Kirtanam, Shavanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Pad Sevanam, right? Archanam, Vandanam,
Dasyam.
Dashyam, then Sakhyam, right? And Atmanivedanam. So those are like 9 different ways of doing the devotional service, surrendering to Lord Shri Krishna, right? And that is the perfection of knowledge. That's when the knowledge is perfected, and then one can try to go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, means getting out of this cultures of all the fruitive activities, because we conditioned, got in touch with those 3 modes of material nature, and then we got into this whole karmas. And this is the knowledge which Narad Muni gave to Prahlāda Maharaj, and he is giving it to all the students, and we are reading that directly from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Sachin.
Hare Krishna. Dehestu sarva sanghato jagatasthu riti dvidha atreva mrugyah purusho neti neti netityatta tatan yajana. There are 2 kinds of bodies for every individual soul: a gross body made of 5 gross elements and a subtle body made of 3 subtle elements. Within these bodies, however, in the spirit soul uh, is the spirit soul. One must find the soul by analysis, saying, this is not it, this is not it. Thus, one must separate spirit from matter. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So we already read that, right? There is a gross body made of 5 gross elements. Yeah, we know that. And Suksham Sharir, the shuttle body made of 3 shuttle elements. What are those 3 elements?
Man, Buddhi, Ahankar.
Man, Buddhi, Ahankar, yeah, mind, intelligence, and ego, yeah, self-ego. And of course, within that, we have the Atma. So the gross body, the shuttle, Suksham Sharir, then there is a soul, which is the Atma, and then there is a Paramatma, right? So all the Atmas, we are related to the Paramatma. And it's a nice, let's read this. Ajay?
Then if one is expert and follows the Acharya, he can understand that he is the spiritual soul living within the body. The greatest Acharya Krishna begins his teaching in Bhagavad Gita by saying, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha deham dehantara praptir dhirastatra na mukhyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita 2.13. The spirit soul possesses the body and is within the body. This is the real analysis. The soul never mixes with the bodily elements. Although the soul is within the body, it is separate and always pure. One must analyze and understand itself. This is self-realization. Neti is the analytical process of rejecting matters. By expertly conducting such an analysis, one can understand where the soul is. One who is not expert, however, cannot distinguish gold from earth, nor the soul from the body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Okay. Sachin.
अन्वय व्यतिरेकेण विवेके नो शतात्मना स्वर्गस्थान समानमना यर्वि विमुष विरत्स्वत्परेः. Sober and expert persons should search for the spirit soul with minds purified through analytical study in terms of the soul's connection with and distinction from all things that undergo creation, maintenance, and destruction. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Prahlāda Maharaj continues to explain this. Tarun.
The body exists because of the presence of the Supreme Lord and the Jiva, which is part of the Lord. This is further explained by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.4. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktya murtina mat satani sarva bhutani na chayam tasva avasthita. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. The Supreme Soul exists everywhere. The Vedas enjoin Sarvam Kalvya Idam Brahma. Everything is Brahman or an expansion of Brahman's energies. Sutre Mani Gana Iva. Everything rests on the Lord, just like pearls strung together on a thread. The thread is the principal Brahman. He is the supreme cause, the supreme Lord upon whom everything rests. Mata Parataram Nanyat. Thus we must study the Atma and Paramatma, the individual soul and the super soul, upon whom the entire material cosmic manifestation rests. This is explained by the Vedic statement, Yato va imami bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Rinaji.
बुद्धिर् जागरणं स्वप्नः सुषुप्तिरिति वृत्तयः ता ये नैवानुभूयन्ते सोऽध्यक्षः पुरुषः परः. Intelligence can be perceived in three states of activity: wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. The person who perceives these three is to be considered the original master, the ruler, the supreme personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's a Buddhi Jagranam. Right? Buddhi, we are generally like three states of mind, right? Either we are swapna, dreaming, yeah, or sushupti, right? Sleeping, and or jagranam. Yeah, it says either we are wakefulness, either we are dreaming, or we are in deep sleep. But if you perceive like how did we get this buddhi, right? Its intelligence has come from none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, that's the understanding we should have is what is mentioned here. Anilji?
एभिस्त्रिवर्णैः पर्यस्तैर्बुद्धि भेदैः क्रियोद्भवैः स्वरूपमात्मनो बुद्धेद गन्धैर्वायु विवान्यवयात. As one can understand the presence of the air by the aroma it carries, so under the guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can understand the living soul by these three divisions of intelligence. These three divisions, however, are not the soul. They are constituted of the three modes and are born of activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So what is mentioned is how do you really understand that there is a soul, right? So the analogy which is given is by, how do you know there is a air, right? When you smell something nice, aromas, you know that there is a presence of the air. Similarly, by those three divisions of intelligence, right, we just read, you can understand there is something else, right? There is a living soul. But what is also important to know is that those three intelligence, the state of mind is not the soul. Yeah, they are essentially constituted by material nature. So what is mentioned? Yeah. Prem?
As already explained, there are three states to our existence, namely wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. In all three states, we have different experiences. Thus, the soul is the observer of these three states. Actually, the activities of the body are not the activities of the soul. The soul is different from the body. Just as aromas are different from the material vehicle in which they are carried, the soul is unattached to the material activities. This analysis can be considered by a person who is fully under the shelter of lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This is confirmed by Vedic injunction, Yasmin Vijante Sarvam Evam Vijantam Bhavati. If one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can automatically understand everything else. Because of not taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, even great scholars, scientists, philosophers, and religionists are always bewildered. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2 or 32. Ye nyaye ravin daksha vimukta maninas tave ashta bhavad visuddha buddhaye. Even though one may artificially think himself liberated from material contamination, if he has not taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, his intelligence is polluted. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So the pure intelligence cannot be obtained otherwise unless one surrenders is what is mentioned. Yeah? Tarun?
As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.42, Indriyani parani ahur indriye vaya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu sah. Above the senses is the mind, above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Ultimately, when one's intelligence becomes clear through devotional service, one is situated in Buddhi Yoga. This also is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Dadami Buddhi Yogam tam ena mam upayanti te. When devotional service develops and one's intelligence becomes clear, one can use his intelligence to return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So the mind is the one, yeah, and one, of course, the buddhi is above one, intelligence, yeah, and of course above the Suksham Sharir, as we know, soul is there, yeah. But with the devotional service, the intelligence becomes clear, and which can help us going back to Godhead is what is mentioned. Reenaji?
एतद्वारो हि संसारो गुणकर्मनिबन्धनः अज्ञानमूलोऽपार्थोऽपि पुंसः स्वप्न इवापर्यते. Through polluted intelligence, one is subjected to the modes of nature, and thus one is conditioned by material existence. Like a dreaming state in which one falsely suffers material existence, which is due to ignorance, must be considered unwanted and temporary. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what is being essentially mentioned is, like when we have a dream, so many things happen. And we actually even feel that. But after that, we know that it was just a dream, right? It's not a reality. Similar thing is being mentioned for the current presence, right? Like this is also temporary. It's like a dream. It's also temporary and it will pass, right? It's unwanted and temporary. We really need to figure out what is the Sat Chit Anand is what is mentioned, yeah? And get away from Sansaro Gun Karm Nimandana. So, Ajay?
Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is for everyone to engage in welfare activities to awaken the foolish living entity, especially in human society, so that he may come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and benefit by liberation from conditional life. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya cites the following verses. Dukhya rupo pi samsaro buddhipurvam avapyate yatha swapne siras chedam swayam kartavatmano vasaha tato dukhyam avipyate tatha jagato piru janam api dimano dukham avasas tu pravartate. One must realize that the material condition of life is full of distress. One can realize this with purified intelligence. When one's intelligence is purified, he can understand that unwanted temporary material life is just like a dream. Just as one suffers pain when his head is cut off in a dream, in ignorance one suffers not only while dreaming but also while awake. Without the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one continues in ignorance and is thus subjected to material distress in various ways. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And what is the way of getting one's intelligence purified? What's the process?
Devotional service.
Devotional service, right? That's the only way where the intelligence can get purified. Yeah. Sachin?
Tasman Madhvabhidhi Kartavyam Karmanam Trigunaatmanam Bija Nirharanam Yogaha Pravaho Paramo Dhiya. Therefore, my dear friends, O sons of demons, your duty is to take to Krishna consciousness, which can burn the seed of fruitive activities artificially created by the moods of material nature and stop the flow of intelligence in wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. In other words, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, his ignorance is immediately dissipated. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, therefore, my dear friends, who is saying this?
Prahlāda.
Prahlāda Maharaj. Yeah, he's telling to all the students there. And they are all, of course, the sons of demons, right? So, he's advising them is to take the Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. It's mentioned here that Lord Krishna further advised in Bhagavad Gita that the first class yogi is he who has come to the platform of devotional service. Yeah. Yogi nam api sarvesham mad gatena antar atman shraddhavan bhajate yo mam somi yuktamo matah. Yeah, of all yogis, I think Arjuna asks Lord Sri Krishna, like, who is the highest yogi? Right? And Lord Krishna then replies that of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga. and is the highest of all. Yeah. Thus, one who always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart is the best yogi. By practicing this best of all yoga systems, one is liberated from the material condition. Yeah. Rinaji?
तत्रोपाय सहस्राणां मयं भगवतोदितः यदीश्वरे भगवती यथा यरञ्जसा रतिः. Of the different processes recommended for disentanglement from material life, the one personally explained and accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be considered all perfect. The process is the performance of duties by which love for the Supreme Lord develops. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anilji?
श्रूषया भक्त्या सर्वलब्धार्पणेन च संगेन साधु भक्तानामीश्वरा राधननेन व च श्रद्धया तत्कथायां च कीर्तनैर्गुणा कर्मणां तत्पादाम्बु बृहद्ध्यानात् तल्लिङ्गेक्षार्पणादिभिः. One must accept the bona fide spiritual master and render service unto him with great devotion and faith. Whatever one has in one's possession should be offered to the spiritual master, and in the association of saintly persons and devotees one should worship the Lord. Hear the glories of the Lord with faith, glorify the transcendental qualities and activities of the Lord, always meditate on the Lord's lotus feet and worship the deity of the Lord strictly according to the injunctions of the Shastra and Guru. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. What is being mentioned? Devotees, one should worship the Lord. Yeah. Hear the glories of the Lord. Shravanam. Yeah. Glorify the transcendental qualities like Kirtanam, right? Like reading Srimad Bhagavatam, listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. The transcendental qualities and activities of the Lord. Meditate on the Lord's lotus feet, right? And serve the lotus feet like Pad Sevana, right? Like Goddess Lakshmi is always in that mode. Yeah. Worship the deity of the Lord. Archana, right? We go to the temples, Arch Vigraha. The deity is supposed to represent the Lord himself, and we serve to the deities. That is Archana. And so by doing all this, yeah, doing great devotion and faith, this is how the devotional service should be done, is what Prahlāda Maharaj is advising all the students. Yeah. Ajay?
Hare sarveshu bhuteshu bhagavanas ishvara iti bhutani manasa kamayasti sadhu maniyet. One should always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his localized representation as the Paramatma, who is situated in the core of every living entity's heart. Thus, one should offer respect to every living entity according to that living entity's position or manifestation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, what is mentioned? Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Hari is situated in everyone's heart. Yeah. Sachin?
एवं निर्जित शंगवर्गेः क्रियते भक्तिरीश्वरे वासुदेवे भगवती यया संलभ्यते रतिः. By these activities, as mentioned above, one is able to cut down the influence of the enemies, namely lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. And when thus situated, one can render service to the Lord. In this way, one surely attains the platform of loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so this is importantly what is mentioned is Vasudeva Bhagavati. Yeah, by doing the devotional service, one can cut down on Shat Varge. like 6 major is kind of, which are Kam, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Moh, and Irsha. Yeah, lust, anger, Kam, Krodh, greed, yeah, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Kam, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Moh, and Irsha can be cut down by rendering service to the Lord. Prem.
Nishab karmani gunat tulyan viryani lilat nubi tani yadati harshol pulkashrid kadag protkant udyat rati rito nityadi. One who is situated in the devotional service is certainly the controller of his senses, and thus he is a liberated person. When such a liberated person, the pure devotee, hears of the transcendental qualities and activities of the Lord's incarnations for the performance of various pastimes, his hair stands on ends of his body. Tears fall from his eyes, and in his spiritual realization, his voice falters. Sometimes he very openly dances, sometimes he sings loudly, and sometimes he cries. Thus he expresses his transcendental jubilation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what is described is the transcendental jubilation state of a pure devotee. Yeah, like sometimes is harsh, pulak, yeah, and sometimes the tears fall from his eyes. And all this when he is listening to the Leela, the Anubhi Kritani, yeah, he's listening to the transcendental quality and activity of the Lord's incarnation, like we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam and so on and so forth. So this Tarun.
The Lord's activities are uncommon. For example, when he appeared as Lord Ramchandra, he performed uncommon activities like bridging the ocean. Similarly, when Lord Krishna appeared, he raised the Govardhan hill when he was only 7 years of age. These are uncommon activities. Fools and rascals who are not in the transcendental position consider these uncommon activities of the Lord to be mythological. But when the pure devotee, the liberated person, hears about these uncommon activities of the Lord, he immediately became ecstatic and exhibits the symptoms of chanting, dancing, and crying very loudly and jubilantly. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What is being mentioned is like those things are not mythology. Yeah, those are really the uncommon activities, but done by the Lord himself, right? In those different forms is what is mentioned here. That's why some people that declare themselves God, then the question to ask them is, hey, why don't you create a bridge on the ocean, right? Or can you lift the Govardhan hill yourself? So yeah, I think we are going to pause, right? Almost 10:30. We are just a little bit late here. We pause, and then of course we had Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? His Purnima on Sunday, on the day of Holi. So we are going to hear his Aarti, 7 to 8 minutes. We are a little bit late, but very beautiful, very nice. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the one who has given us this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Right? And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than direct avatar of Lord Sri Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani. Yeah. So really nice to hear this. Let's Bhakti.
Jayo Jayo Gora Chande Arati ko shobha ki bajayo Jagamanalo निकटे अद्वैत श्रीनि वास छत्रधार निकटे अद्वैत श्रीनि वास छत्रधार घोषी আছে গৌরচাঁদ রত্ন সিংহাসনে ঘোষী আছে গৌরচাঁদ রত্ন সিংহাসনে আরতি করে না ব্রহ্মা আদি দেবগানে আরতি করে না আদি তোরি চামর দুলায় জীবনরা হরি আদি তোরি চামর দুলায় সঞ্জয় মুকুন্দ বাসু ঘোষাদি গায় সঞ্জয় মুকুন্দ বাসু শঙ্খা বাজে ঘন্টা বাজে বাজে করতাল শিব শঙ্খা বাজে ঘন্টা বাজে বাজে করতাল মধুর মৃদঙ্গ বাজে পরম রসাল মধুর মৃদঙ্গ বাজে পরম রসাল শিব বহু কোটি চন্দ্র জিনি वदन उज्ज्वल गल देशे बन माला करे झलमाल शिवा शुक नारद निमि गद गद शिवा शिवा विनोद देते गौरार संपद विनोद देते गौरार संपद शिव जयो जय गोरा चंदे आरती के शोभा जानवी तट बने जगमान लोभा जानवी तट बने जगमान लोभा गौरंगे रारती शोभा जग जन मान लोभा गौरंगे
Right, nice. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Aarti, yeah. Gaur Nitai Aarti. And we'll see you tomorrow, 9:30 p.m.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.